And what was so interesting to me about attachment style, which by the way, it's Levine, Dr. Levine wrote a phenomenal book called Attached, right, on this that I recommend for everyone is, there are primarily three categories of attachment. You have secure, you have anxious, and then you have avoidant, right? And when you think about this, it's precisely what you just said, Stephen, is that when you think of how you first saw love and you saw it modeled and you saw it relate to you, right? Was it one of which was secure in that you felt like you would be, if you were hurt, you could go to a place for safety, right? You would be caressed, right? You'd be cared for, that's secure. But then you move to the avoidant, right? Where it was you almost having to self-soothe yourself, right? Which then pushes you away from wanting to have anything to do with that. And you become, what's interesting? The top, and this is just me guessing and observing, the top entrepreneurs are avoidants because they've had to develop the skills to self-sustain themselves, right? They've had to rely on themselves. People who are avoidant don't trust easily, but you trust yourself, right? So you look at that and you say, oh my God, like this came from me as a child. Like it's incredible. And then with the anxious is really interesting because the anxious was typically a lot of parents, like my situation where your parents worked all the time. So when they were home, they would be there to give you the love, but they couldn't be home all the time because they had to work. So then you had to self-soothe a little bit. So then you became anxious about their love.
Needy.
And this is the person who's like texting you all the time. Like, I know in the past, you must have had the girlfriend who was like, Stephen, where are you? Stephen, where are you?
No comment.
Stephen, where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Right? All of that shows up as adults, right? And also this is, but I guess long story short is to the point of when we've recognized that, this is why being in a relationship with someone who is secure is so important because you can shift your style as an adult. You can be avoidant, be in a relationship with someone who's secure and adapt to a secure attachment.
Do you notice that? Do you notice that people who are avoidant tend to go for people that are more secure?
No, they go for the anxious.
Interesting.
Right? Yeah.
So they go for needy people.
Yeah. Right. Because I mean, it becomes a bit of a, they're chasing them and they're because, you think about this. If you're avoidant, you're pretty much self-sustained, right? But if someone is anxious, they're aggressively courting you, right? So they're pushing to be in your space, right? So the secure, unfortunately, becomes boring for so many people. Safe, vanilla.
It's so true. I can't believe how true this is.
Yeah. But secure is where it's at, is where it's at.
You want two secure people.
You want a secure in anyone else. A strong secure could help bring anyone over too. But also, an avoidant and anxious can also, work. It's ultimately, to me, it's about that effort.
Is there such a way, so if I'm an avoidant, for example, or I'm an anxious, is there work I can do myself to become a secure without having to meet a secure and have them bring me over?
Yes, absolutely. One of the top things someone who is avoidant can work on is their emotional intimacy. And that begins with simply recognizing their emotions, your emotions, and articulating them. It actually seems easy, but it's incredibly challenging.
So uncomfortable.
Especially
for a man.
Yes. So for example, I could say, Stephen, how do you feel right now in this moment?
Now, in this moment, very inspired and very keen to learn.
Okay.
More, but very, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, you did that effortlessly, right?
Yeah.
But now the next challenge would be, okay, well, do that with your romantic partner. right? And do it in spaces where you feel vulnerable.
Yeah.
It becomes very, very challenging to say how you feel, how someone makes you feel.
It makes perfect sense because there was a void in my childhood of parenting, which I've always said has made me an entrepreneur. But in that void as well, there's a void of like learning affection. So okay. I still call my parents by their first names. I've never called them mum and dad. We weren't like, there was no like, I love you or like hugging or stuff like that, especially in my childhood. So learning later in life to be emotional and to express how I'm feeling, and to, if your girlfriend says, what's wrong? Or, how do you feel about this? I'd often just lie about how I was feeling just for keep things nice and calm.
Right.
But I definitely, it's definitely something I've had to learn.
Right. But I can see that, so, I mean, you're a life learner, like you're a student of life. So I can see that you have not even begun, you've done the work, right? But for so many avoidance.
I'd say begun.
Begun, okay.
Yeah.
So, but for so many avoidance, that work has not yet begun. And being able to identify the emotion, right? And the feeling too, because, and even distinguish between the emotion and the feeling, right? But to be able to distinguish that and then to be able to articulate that is so incredibly important, because without that, you cannot have the emotional intimacy. And if you can't have emotional intimacy, you just simply can't have a relationship. You just can't. You have acquaintances, you have coworkers, you have situationships, but you don't have relationships.
That is a amazing soundbite. Please cut that into a reel for TikTok team listening. So there's gender differences here as well, because of my friends, both women and men, I know for a fact that my male friends usually just push for like an easy life.
Yeah.
They just want, if their partner's expressing emotional feelings or is expressing their emotions towards them, most of my male friends will see that as an attack, and like they just don't want to go there. It's this energy that men just don't like. So I was watching this funny Twitter video before I came down here, and it's this woman, she's cooked dinner for her husband and she's proving that men just won't tell you the truth. She puts loads of salt in it to make it taste awful, and she walks into the front room while he's watching the game and she goes, try this, hun, tell me what you think. And you see his face just wink, and it's fucking disgusting, and he goes, yeah, good. And for me, it summed up men. It's like we just want to avoid the heat. Like
we literally.